Oh.
Good morning.
That's not morning.
Everyone.
Good afternoon, sort of. Good afternoon.
I'll be honest with you, I'm very grateful this is a convention. It's not Start Panel's turn there. Oh boy. Anyways. Hello, everybody. We are 3/4 of Southern Hospitality Cosplay. He's very busy at this convention, but y'all should say hi to her if you see her.
She's going to be at the MC at the cosplay show.
She's going to be at the cosplay show, so you'll definitely see her if you go see that. Anyways, quick introductions. I'm Bimaru.
I'm Declan Screen.
And I am Big Blue Friday.
And we are a cosplay group that consists largely, entirely of LGBT persons, and that's why we're doing a panel about LGBT content. In case you're wondering, why is this cosplay group talking to me about LGBT stuff? Because we're all real gay. Anyways, this is a panel about LGBT names, characters, elements, and representation in anime and manga. A panel for Southern Hospitality Cosplay. Us! Hooray! Moving on.
We're good at talking because we're all a little sleep deprived.
If you've been to this panel before, you kind of know what the deal is. We're going to go over the history of everything first. We're going to talk about some different aspects of LGBT representation. And then we're going to look at 4 relatively current series that have elements of LGBT representation in them. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about manga. This is not super different from the one last year because we were put on the standby list and we didn't get this panel approved until earlier this month.
Apologies.
So apologies if any of this starts to feel familiar.
Yeah, we usually invest a few months at least in trying to catch up on
the important content, the 4 anime we looked at, was new. So we're not just going to talk about Yuri on Ice again.
As much as we would love to.
But if you'd love to talk about Yuri on Ice, you can find us after the panel and we'll talk your ears off about it. Anyways, what is LGBT? Who here does not know what the acronym LGBT stands for? Is that a serious response? Transgender, by the way, you got it. You're close. Close enough. But representation is a little harder to define. In its most basic form, media representation is the inclusion, depiction, and otherwise presentation of any given demographic in media, fictional or otherwise. Representation as a process works in a trinity of sub-processes known as production, reference, and reception. Basically what demographics are included, how they are portrayed, and how the audience reacts or is intended to react to it. If you've done media studies before, this is not new information to you. This is basically the cornerstone of representation. If you've done media studies, you probably have at least part of a course dedicated to this topic. So that's not new information. But the more subjective thing is why is representation important? How we see ourselves and how other people see us is important in any functioning society. Media's presentation of LGBT identities shapes how we are seen in society. It will have an impact both small and large. Interpersonal, professional, and even legal relationships can be affected by this perception. So don't let anyone ever tell you representation doesn't matter. Anyone that tells you that is trying to sell you bull. It absolutely 100% matters. And even for little things, not necessarily identities.
It's fine.
You
woke me up.
I'm gonna give you the lecture. No, I'm not.
Though, if you haven't already, we ask that you please silence your phones.
Or if you've got a ringer, make sure it's a banger.
Not asking much.
Not asking much. But yes, even outside of identity, politics, and sociology, representation matters. Like, imagine how something as simple as how women were portrayed on television in the 50s affected how women were responded to in society. It makes sense in its most basic terms. So even getting away from stuff like this, representation matters. There is no world where it doesn't matter because we live in a society. It's a dumb meme, but it's also the truth.
My favorite example for that actually is kids' toys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
kids seeing commercials and, if something is always advertised to boys and it's, me being a girl and having an older brother, I played with those toys too. Girls don't play with these toys. This girl does.
But it's important to detail the difference, especially when we're talking about anime and manga, about representation versus exploitation. Apologies to any Love Live or Senna and Camcorder fans in the audience. You know who you are.
It's okay. We won't judge you.
I'm not making fun of anybody, by the way. That's what the fake hand is for. Anyways, I am making fun of Katy Perry, though. Apologies to Katy Perry. Exploitation in this sense is when media tries to succeed financially by exploiting a current trend, a niche genre, or a lurid subject matter. In relevant terms, exploiting homosexual relationships in order to sell the product as sexual fantasy. Exploitation of LGBT identity in media is the use or portrayal of LGBT sex or identity to increase the appeal of media or a product to the detriment of or without regard to the interest of LGBT persons. To summarize, it is not made for us, it is intended for the titillation of a straight audience. There's tons of examples of these. I actually used to have several slides of examples in anime, and then I just got tired of doing that. But anyone can probably imagine in their head something they've seen where they're thinking, I'm pretty sure this is meant to make straight people feel weird and not have anything to do with me as a queer person. So, it happens. It has happened for a very long time in anime and manga. The predatory lesbian character who gropes all of her friends, even though it's not so funny. Or the gay male character who's wearing full face makeup but has a 5 o'clock shadow and speaks in an overly effeminate way. Like, those are considered exploitative tropes that are designed for the entertainment of the straight audience. They're not meant to represent us in any way. And to go further on that, this is a topic we feel like we've had to talk about a lot more in recent memory because everybody and their mother thinks they understand what the term queerbaiting means, and many people miss the mark.
And that's okay.
Queerbaiting is the practice, mainly in film or television writing, to hint at, but then not actually depict, a potential same-sex romantic relationship between fictional characters. Traditionally, this has been intentionally done, as in done on purpose, not something that happens on accident, to draw in queer audiences, as in it's not done for straight people. It is done for us, but only halfway. In the West. So it's not really a thing that exists in Japan. Because people have accused a lot of anime of being queerbaiting, and that's not a thing in Japan. That's not something that actually happens. Remember we were talking about exploitation, how those tropes are designed to be entertaining for straight people? That's all that's happened. Like male characters being really close together. They're aiming for female audiences who like to watch men make out. Like that's not representation. That's exploitation. It's not queerbaiting either though, because it's not done for us. In anime, there really isn't such a thing as the queer demographic. It's considered a valid target for such content. It just goes back to being plain old exploitation. It is hard to tell sometimes what is intended and what is accidental. So it's really just best to let this thing stay as nuanced and not try to overanalyze it too much. Even though this is a panel that is explicitly about overanalyzing things. Just take my word for it. Anyways, a relatively brief history of queer media in Japan. Before we begin, or where we begin rather, while queer fiction existed in Japan for some time, going back several centuries in fact, gay manga didn't really become a thing until the late 60s, early 70s. The first widely recognized gay magazine in Japan was Adonis, which was published in the 50s, but it wasn't until Banazoku came about in the 60s that sexual identity began expressed in manga. The reason that copy of Adonis looks so poorly Xeroxed and slapped together because it was.
Zine culture.
Adonis is an early part of Japanese queer zine culture, I guess is what you call it. These were passed around in bathhouses. They weren't really sold anywhere. They definitely weren't sold in stores. They're meant to just, handed around places where gay men hang out in Japan in the 60s and 50s. So that's kind of where Banazoku got its start, but it eventually got a legit publishing deal. It's still being published to this day. Beginning in the Taisho era with the popularity of the Takarazuka Review, all-female theater troupes, there is an anime running right now that is based on this, Summer Kind Girl, called Starlight Review. I highly recommend it. It's not discussed in this panel because it's not finished yet, but it probably will be next year. Girls' fiction took off in Japan, particularly those portraying lesbian relationships inspired by romantic overtures and Takarazuka performances. Nobuko Yoshiya was one of the most prolific authors of lesbian fiction in that era, writing Class S stories that depicted forbidden romance between upper and underclassmen girls, based on what she saw as something that kind of lurid behind-the-scenes activity of Takarazuka troops. Her works and the continued presence of Takarazuka inspired her to become the Yuri genre of manga and anime. Nobuko Yoshiya, an interesting fact about her is that she wrote several letters to her colleagues because, as is usual in Japan, women were not the only one writing girls' fiction. And she got very, very, very upset about men writing girls fiction because they had this habit of having the girls break up when they left high school and getting married to men, and she very, very much hated that fact. That's kind of a cultural thing in Japan, that experimental homosexuality is considered something somewhat acceptable for school-aged men and women. And it's, as soon as you become adulthood, you start the responsible thing of starting a family. And this is starting to sound like the subplot of Darling in the Franxx. You didn't miss it. We'll get there. Briefly, because you can spend an entire hour discussing everything that's wrong with Darling in the Franxx, but I'm not going to touch too much on it. But if you're familiar with cultural practice in Japan about, young people must breed kind of thing, it all kind of ties into that. And she hated that. So.
I think she actually did recognize that as a
Yes, she did.
Yes.
That's
Well,
a
Nobuko Yoshida, men are useless.
I mean, we are.
Praise be, sister, you are not wrong.
Sorry.
Trans manga. Representation of trans lives and experiences in manga isn't common today, and it wasn't any more common in the early days of manga, but there were a few exceptions. Authors like Go Nagai very liberally played with the concepts of gender and sexuality in their early work. We're going to be talking more about him later, and you know why.
Thank you, Papa.
Thank you, Papa. And Gekiga innovator Yoshihiro Tatsumi directly tackles subversive topics like trans identity. Some of their works, such as Manga, which is the short we have up there, about a trans woman who, goes to a bar, falls in love with this woman who she met. They have a thing, and she's like, I don't care what your body is. I fell in love with a woman tonight. When this came out in the 60s, that was really revolutionary thing to say. It still kind of is. It's good stuff if you ever want to look it up. People are wondering what the word Gekiga means. Authors like Yoshihiro Tatsumi hated being called mangaka because they associate manga with tezuka and childish comics and stuff like that. So they sort of formed a different term for themselves. They produced adult works. So they wanted an adult work for themselves. They're special boys. Yaoi and Yuri, at least in their manga form, as we know today, were both invented by a group of shoujo manga artists and authors known as the Year 24 group. It means they were born in the year 24 of Heisei? No, Heisei's this year, isn't it?
Yes, Heisei.
Showa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks,
Japanese
Japan.
dates are confusing to me.
Thanks, Japan.
But that's what Year 24 group means, because that's like the question that comes up. Like, what does that even mean? Like, well, that's what it means. Yaoi means Yamanashi, Ochinashi, Iminashi, and there's some kanji for you, which roughly translates to no peak, no fall, no meaning. What this generally means, if that's a little too dense to penetrate, is basically they're not here for the plot, they're here for the penetration. They just wanted to get to the good parts. Because like I said, queer fiction existed before them. But the women creating what would become known as the yaoi genre weren't super interested in the build-up. They liked the melodrama, as we'll see later.
Oh boy, I love the melodrama.
But they really also wanted them to just get down to business and start making fun. So that's where the term yaoi comes from. Yuri simply means lily. It's a Japanese word for lily. It was coined by Barazoku to describe its lesbian reader base and fans. They were called the Yuri Zoku, because Bara means rose. It's wordplay. While we traditionally view yaoi as tending to be more explicit, feels more romantic, the truth is those terms are almost entirely interchangeable in Japan, especially these days, used by publishers that sell either or both. There is a term that we used to see a lot more in the West that is actually not used in Japan, hardly any, except for a specific type of yaoi, called shonenai. And the reason it's not used, except for a specific type of yaoi, is because shonenai has pedophilic connotations, so it's not even a word. So if you're ever wondering why people stopped calling this stuff shonenai, that's why. Anyway, Yuri, however, covers a much broader range of concepts, themes, features lesbians and lesbian characters and central elements. And we'll talk more about that. One of the very first Yuri manga was Shiroi Heya no Futari by Ryoko Yamagishi. It's her in the picture. She has a lovely smile. It invented the rose and candy archetype that almost all Yuri from the 70s and 80s follow. Some Yuri still does. The archetype is simple. The candy type is a petite, thin, innocent girl, whereas a rose is a taller, aggressive, masculine in behavior, not necessarily in appearance, though they would become more and more butch as the years went on. That became a more popular aesthetic in Japan. And one is often attracted to or admiring the other. Homophobia is used for melodramatic effects, often, and stories almost certainly end in tragedy with the rose dying to protect the candy from scandal or harm. It is often surmised that these lesbian panic endings weren't the intent of the authors, but instead pushed by conservative publishers at the time. Ryoko Yamagishi has spoken a lot about this in recent years and confirmed that yes, her publishers made her change the ending of her manga because they were afraid that the girls had a happy ending, it would be considered subversive, and they would get in trouble with the law. And that was a thing you could get in trouble with the law in Japan at the time. You still kind of can. Subversive media is something they actually police over there, so something to keep in mind. While Yuri continued to exist as a shoujo subgenre, lesbianism in mainstream manga and anime was having a hard time. It wasn't treated as a huge joke, some examples, or done as pure fan service meant for male eyes. It just didn't exist at all. This started to change with Naoko Takeuchi's Sailor Moon. Hooray, Sailor Moon! Everyone's heard of Sailor Moon, right? Like, there's no one in here who's like, the heck is Sailor Moon, right? Okay, we're all on that same page. Good. Don't have to explain too much. This was, at the time it was released, the first mainstream all-ages manga to feature a lesbian couple that was neither perverse nor treated as a joke, though it was written pretty weirdly, but that's just because Naoko Takeuchi is a pretty weird person.
It's fine. It's fine.
Prince Uranus. Anyways. Someone's been watching way too much Takahazuka. Anyways, Takeuchi has maintained that Sailor Moon is a manga for all girls, including queer girls. So hooray, Takeuchi. May she live long and prosper. Modern state of Yuri. Yuri has grown to become one of the most broad, all-encompassing genres in Japanese fiction. Since the criteria seems to be just featuring lesbianism as a central element, Yuri has spanned romance stories, adventure stories, action stories, sci-fi, horror, comedy, etc. To go ahead and spoil it for you right now, 3 of the 4 anime we are talking about later largely feature female relationships, and all 3 are in completely different genres. So, if that sets up anything about how much variety there is in Yuri, that should be a good expectation. Yuri can target female audiences, male or both, explicit or not at all. Yuri is very, very diverse. Some examples of relatively modern Yuri. Early yaoi, everyone loves yaoi. Yaoi started out as a literary genre for the most part. It made a shift to manga with Keiko Takamiya's Kaze Fuki no Uta. Who here has read this, by the way? It's kind of bad, isn't it? But
I think I started.
It is what it is for the time. It's super melodramatic. I mean, so was the other one we talked about that I can never remember the name of the top of my head. But this one in particular, oh boy.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Everyone cries in this manga so much. Anyway, Takamiya's works set up a similar archetypical pattern that most yaoi would follow thereafter. Okay.